Hi guys, my name is Violet and I've been interviewing my dad about his 1997 Everest summit climb. He was on an expedition filming a documentary for Nova and he's with climbers such as David Brashears, Ed Viesturs, Guy Cotter, and a few other notable guys. Even though it's 30 years later, I had a sudden curiosity about his climb, so I decided to interview him about it and I created this series called My Dad Climbed Everest and I Have Questions. I originally made it for TikTok, so if you want, you can go check it out there, and that's the reason it's formatted the way it is. In today's video, we're discussing some hot topics about Everest. So this includes his experience of seeing dead bodies on Mount Everest, and then answering questions like why are dead bodies left there? And then we talk about what he thinks makes Everest worth dying for, and answers questions like, was his life duller after climbing Everest and coming down from the mountain? And the biggest life lessons he learned from having this near-death experience on Everest. So I hope you enjoy.
So yes, I did see a few dead bodies, and I don't want to really go into detail. One of the people we did see was on the in the right below the Hillary Step. He was a South African climber named Bruce Harrod, and he had died the year before. I think on May 29th, 1996. He had summited and came down late from the summit, and it looks like he had fallen or got tangled up on the fixed lines, the Hillary Step, and his body was at the base of the Hillary Step, and we just kind of, I hate to say it, I just climbed right over him. One of the other guys on our climb, Pete Athens, cut him loose of the line, kind of buried him off to the side. But the interesting thing about Bruce is his down suit feathers came out when Pete was working on his body, I think, and those down feathers kind of followed us up to the summit. That last little section, it's pretty interesting and pretty cool. Good energy.
Why are bodies not brought down from the mountain? Well, they're brought down when they can be. It's really hard to operate at altitude, especially above 8,000 meters. We talked about this before, but just to walk takes a lot of breathing. Your heart rate's up, and to just taking care of yourself takes a lot of energy, and it's really hard to bring somebody down that's deceased on the mountain. First, you got to pack the body. You got to make sure their arms and legs are consolidated to the body, and then you got to put them on either a sled, or a lot of times they'll wrap a climbing rope around them and put an Insulite pad or a thermarest pad down below, and then they'll wrap rope around them, and it will take quite a few guys. Always Sherpas are the ones that are bringing down the bodies. And it just takes a lot of effort, and quite frankly, it's very dangerous to bring these bodies down, especially if you're the rescuer, because you're tied onto this body, and you got to control it on the descent down the body, and it's very dangerous, and you cannot make any mistakes, especially when you're going down like the Lhotse face or something. And then once you get down to Camp 2 at Advanced Base Camp, nowadays they can bring a chopper in there to pick people up and bodies up. But in the old days, when I was there, they'd bring them all the way back down to base camp. And we brought a body down, our Sherpa team brought a body down at the beginning of the climb in 1997, Yasko, the Japanese lady. And they were paid to do it by her husband, and they brought her body down to base camp, and then he took her body down, I think, to Tangbo Shahid Monastery to be cremated. But that was a hard operation, very physically demanding, and those guys worked their butt off to get her back down. She was brought down from the South Col at 8,000 meters. That's the high camp, Camp 4. So a long way down. I think it took them a couple days, 2 to 3 days to get her down. And thankfully nobody got hurt.
Ooh, what makes Everest worth dying for? And I would say nothing. Nothing makes Everest worth dying for, or climbing in general. I don't think of anything that's worth dying for. There's risks in climbing, and that's part of the draw to it. But you can manage those risks. Nothing in life is totally safe. Security is as Helen Keller said, is an illusion. I just think that you can manage those risks to the best of your abilities by being, the right training, making the right decisions on to go up to the top if it's, inclement weather, making the decision to turn around if the route is not safe from avalanches or your team's not that strong. There's a lot of points for on these decisions to go or not to go, but also to take that risk that puts you over the edge where you can die. It's just not worth it to die on any mountain, I don't think. But it does happen because you can't control everything, and that's also the beauty of climbing, because you're at the mercy of the mountain gods and the avalanches and the rock fall and the weather at some point, and your physical conditioning, if your body's going to hold up that day, if your crampon's going to stay on your feet. I look at it, and nobody up there has a death wish. Nobody wants to die on those mountains, but it does happen quite a bit. When I got back down from Everest in '97, I was just kind of relieved to have survived it. What life wasn't dull. I would have to say the opposite. It was more fulfilling, and I was more aware how special life is. But I also was more aware that, we're all going to die, and we're not going to get off this planet alive. And especially since I had that closeness with death up there, it has magnified to me just how special life is. And especially I became more aware of nature and things like that. And it's just helped me see the light, but I've also see that, hey, we're all going to die. And I came pretty close. And because of that, I'm just more aware of death. And when you're more aware of death, I think you appreciate things more. Wow. There's so many life lessons to climbing. The biggest thing I've learned is how to get along with different personalities in the mountains, be accepting of everybody. But the other thing I've learned is never to give up. There's climbs where you just can't summit because the weather's bad or the route's bad or you're sick, or it's just not going to happen. And you always want to go back and try it again. In '91, I didn't summit, and I kind of learned a lot about that, how to climb Everest in '91 and how to pace myself better, how to push myself, how to train better, but also how to accept more and more suffering. And then, from '91 to '97, I climbed a lot, but I also, everything I did was to make sure I was prepared for the '97 climb, physically and mentally especially. And I keep going back as you learn from your not being successful or turning around on a climb, and you always want to make sure, trying to figure out how to say this, but make sure that you're always progressing and getting better and better, especially in your decision making. The other thing I learned is on these Everest climbs, you're climbing with Nepalese, Sherpas. You're climbing with people that have different views of the world and different views on religion, if they're religious at all. I climb with Hindus, Muslims, Christians, probably some atheists. But I feel like one thing I learned on my '97 climb is everybody's kind of going down the same path. Everybody's religion is almost basically the same. Have I ever experienced avalanches? I have. I've never been caught in an avalanche, but I've seen some big avalanches in the Himalayas. When I was climbing in '97, I saw a big avalanche come off the West Ridge when we were up in the icefall. That was pretty scary. I was with Guy Cotter at the time. We were moving up to Camp 2, I think it was on our summit attempt moving up the mountain, and we saw a pretty big avalanche. And then when you're up at base camp, you see avalanches every day up there. I mean, it's a common occurrence. And thankfully, I've never been caught in one. You know, whenever I had doubt about a slope, I just wouldn't go up.